She literally calls the Darkling basic. Alina was in her prime in this book. Welcome back to my library for the final installment in the Shadow and Bone series by Lee Bardugo. We're going to be talking about Rune and Rising, which is the final book in the trilogy. Spoilers, by the way, because what the fuck was that ending all about? Okay, starting off, to be honest, I enjoyed this book the most. This book comes first for me, then the first book was my second favorite, and then the second book was my least favorite, because it was mostly filler, let's be honest. This book was actually pretty neat, I'd say. I mean, at this point I did kind of give up on this series mostly, but I still enjoyed it for what it was. The issues I have with this book are the same that I have with the entire series, and it's just that I wish that Bardugo would have been more daring, and that the series in general, it could have been more memorable. I do think she's a good writer, and she wrote a good series for the target demographic, which is obviously young adults and teenagers. But I just wish there was some oomph to this series. It just falls beneath the cracks for me. It's very forgettable. There are some parts that are very enjoyable, some very interesting ideas, some cool characters, but it never goes anywhere. It doesn't really go for it. But we'll talk about this. So in general, it's a very 3-star review for me. It's enjoyable, it's easy to read, but I'm not like dying to reread it again. Maybe some parts in particular, but not the entire series. That's not something that I would be doing. I do have high hopes for the show. I think it's going to improve on a lot of stuff. It's going to kind of do its own thing, and I'm a big fan of the cast. I think everyone looks like they're having a lot of fun with this, and I'm very excited to see how it will go, so high hopes for that. I'm going to start off with the likes. So the things I enjoyed about Rune and Rising. First of all, we finally get the camaraderie between the characters. So in the first book it was a lot of setup, it was introducing everyone. That was kind of the point. Then in the second book it was like, you can go watch my previous video. There was a lot of focus on Mal and Alina specifically, and then Nikolai was also thrown in, but they didn't really let him do too much. I feel like he was just kind of a ploy for Mal and Alina to have these relationship issues. Like I've talked about it in my previous video. I've nagged about it in my previous video. I'm not going to do it again. But that was that's where the focus lies in the second book. And in this one, we finally get some more of the other characters. Some of them are more fleshed out than others. I mean, that's kind of what you get. And that's, for me, that wasn't a big deal. That was fine. I liked most of the side characters. I liked the group dynamic they had going on. I liked... I can't read my own fucking writing. What did I write? Friend group. Yeah, I liked... Also, I enjoyed their on-the-run kind of situation. I prefer that much more over the kind of typical training montage of the first book and then the second. When they just stay in one place and they're like training. But it's in a book, you don't like actually see a lot of that. You mainly just read they were training. And it's at this point it's also overdone in my opinion, especially in fantasy. So I like when characters are on the run, when they're having to escape. Not necessarily escape the Darkling again. We get to the final book in the series, and this time it actually kind of felt like the stakes were raised, some shit happens. Some people die again, but this time it's actually characters that we know. So it feels like there is an actual war going on this time, kind of. So I appreciated that. It felt, like I said, it felt very hectic. A lot of stuff was happening. So that's why kind of enjoyed this one more so than the other two. One of my favorite little moments, little random moments, was when we got the actual name reveal for the Darkling. So I can stop calling him the Darkling, but I'm not going to, because he'll always be the Darkling to me. He'll always be the Darkling in my heart. But apparently his name is Alexander, I believe, Morozov, which, here we are again with the linguistics. When you have Russian names and they don't make any sense, because he should have been Alexander Morozov and she should have been Alina Starkova, but they have Alina Starkov instead and Alexander Morozova, which linguistically makes no fucking sense. Article, why do you keep doing this to me? But anyway, my favorite little moment was when the Darkling revealed his true name to Alina in one of their little Star Wars Force moments, and he says, "My name is Alexander." And she like right off, and she like just laughs in his face, and she's literally like, and he's like, "Are you laughing at my name?" And she's like, "Yeah, it's just so basic." She literally calls the Darkling basic. Alina was in her prime in this book. She was at the top of her game in this book. She was like, I don't have anything bad to say, but Alina was. She was that bitch in this book. She was literally laughing in his face. She was literally calling the Darkling a basic bitch, which I really thought was funny. I also like the ending kind of switcheroo with Mal being the final amplifier. I mean, it still kind of makes no sense, but at least it's something interesting. On to my dislikes. So, that being said, in the end, Mal's sacrifice means nothing because he just comes back. And guys, I'm not even one of the Mal haters out there. Like I said in my previous video, I just don't really care that much. I would have liked him a lot more if he was just Alina's like very close best friend. I think he fits that friend role a lot better. As soon as they started being lovey-dovey with each other, it's just gross and boring, and I'm not here for it. It just undermines their relationship a little bit. It just, I don't know. I'm just here for some platonic, like I like some romance, but I just want to see some platonic best friends at the center of like a fantasy series or something. I don't know. But yeah, Mal's sacrifice holds no weight because he literally comes back. And like we all knew he was going to come back, but it's like, really? What's the point? The stuff that happens to Nikolai, he gets turned into this monster by the Darkling. Also, why? It was very interesting, but it was an interesting idea, but it didn't go anywhere. And apparently I know that he has, there's like a spin-off book or something of Nikolai after this trilogy, like a sequel to him, to his life. But like, is that the point? Am I supposed to read a different book about Nikolai dealing with stuff that happened in this series? I don't know. Am I the only one who finds that a bit weird? Like, it's cool to get more of these characters, because I'm also going to say that Nikolai and the Darkling were probably the two most interesting characters, and they are very underutilized in this series. Yeah, I just don't really get what the point was of Nikolai. Just to make it angsty, I guess, which I like. I'm here for some angst. That's why I also like this book. I like the angst. But it just doesn't, once again, it doesn't really go that extra mile. It just stays kind of meh. And then he also turns back and it's like, okay, whatever. Yeah, it's just very easily resolved. Both conflicts are very easily resolved. Like, I don't know, I like that the entire storyline, the entire plotline where Mal was like trying to find peace with this very difficult decision that he has to sacrifice himself to save the people he cares about, the world, and then it's just he comes back, which also makes no sense. It's like, oh, the power in him dies. Where have I heard that before? The power that the enemy was looking for dies when they kill him, and then he comes back to life, and he's fine now. Where did I hear that before? And actually the same happens to Alina, basically. She also loses her power, and then she's just like, she can finally be a normal girl, which... like, what's the point in, like, am I supposed to be happy for her that she, I don't know, she loses all her power and she becomes Mal's wife? Am I supposed to care? Am I supposed to care? Because I don't. One of my favorite scenes was actually the Darkling dying, when he finally got so much more interesting, because we finally get to the reveal of his actual motives, aside from taking over the world and all that shit. The thing he actually wanted from Alina was to find someone like him, to find someone who can understand him. He finally got so much more interesting, and he dies. So again, in the end, it's all the same for me, this entire book. It has some interesting characters, some interesting ideas, some interesting stuff going on, but it just doesn't go there. And maybe that is because it's a YA novel. Maybe it would have been like, it would have been more daring if it was like adult fantasy, which is why I feel like the show is more so going that route. Like, it already looks a bit darker, a bit more complex. So that's why I'm into it. I'm done. I don't know if I'm going to read. I know everyone loves the Six of Crows duology, and I haven't read that one either yet. But I don't know if I'm going to get to it before the series. I don't know. Maybe that's for later in the year. We'll see how it goes. I'll see you again soon in my library.